talks, I was like, just be in the room, just like experience it and see what it feels like, see how it's reverberating through the audience, like see if you can feel the emotional current, because I think that this piece has a deep emotional current to it.
And welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Darnell Radford. This is the Broad Street Review podcast. I am still here in this box. I can't seem to get out of here, but like I said, I can always invite people in. Just so crazy. How does it work that way? Doors, keys. Anyway, we're here in the studio today by way of Theater Horizon out in Norristown. And we're here to talk with Interim Artistic Director Matt Decker, who is also the co-writer, collaborator, and director of this world premiere on stage at Theater Horizon, Wishing to Grow Up Brightly, a search for connection in the fragments left behind. Matt Decker, welcome back to the podcast. Yeah, it's I was trying to set this up so that you and Amanda could join together in a happy union, and because schedules are what they are. So we get to have two fun interviews about Theater Horizon. So that's so great. And it's been a while since I've had a chat with you, Matt. So I'm glad to have you here in the studio.
Yeah, it's been a long time. It's really nice to be chatting with you again, especially about this piece.
Yes. It's been an interesting journey to get here. If you're listening, if you're an avid listener, thank you. You may have heard our interview with Amanda Morton. And so now we're just going to continue this conversation and this love fest for Theater Horizon today. So before we get into the piece, tell us about you at this point. You're interim artistic director, and tell us about how everything is going.
It's going great. Yeah, I'm the interim artistic director. I came back last fall. I've been here for about a year, and Nell Ben Jensen is now running the Fringe Festival, the Philly Fringe Festival, and Philly Fringe. And so I came back to guide the company through that transition, and it would just happen to coincide with Wishing to Grow Up Brightly. So it was kind of perfect timing in a lot of ways. Not that we wanted Nell to go, but it lined up with me going to be back around at Theater Horizon for a lot of time in my life. So it's been wonderful. And we've since announced our new leader in my dear Talia Robinson, who's our executive director now and is running the company. So she is really the management and the vision of the company, and we'll soon be starting our search for an artistic director to come in and handle the programming and also all the production elements of the company.
And though you're wearing many hats, are you at least having fun?
Yeah, totally. I mean, theater production and producing is sometimes, as we all know, like can be very sort of stressful, but no, it's ultimately fun. And particularly with this piece that has been sort of in development for a number of years, like to see it finally come to life has been so joyful and so exciting. So no, it's been mostly fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll get right into it. Wishing to Grow Up Brightly. Talk about the first conversation you had that kicked this off to where we are today.
Oh, wow. Amanda and I have known each other for 15 years. She has been a collaborator in so many ways with me. I first met her as an actor. She auditioned to be in Theater Horizon's production of the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. And we cast her in that. And then she and I became like fast friends, and we just wanted to do other things together. And I found out in working with her that she was not only an actor, but she was an incredible musician and a music director. And so we started working together on music supervision projects, music directing projects. She eventually moved to Philadelphia. We collaborated on so many things all over the city and also at Theater Horizon. And I was telling this story the other night at opening that every time Theater Horizon has like a milestone, a musical theater milestone in its history, in its 21-year history, like Amanda's been a part of it. And so, she was with us for Spelling Bee, which was a huge show that like our audience expanded because of that show being such a popular show on our end. And then she was a part of our productions of Into the Woods. She was a part of our production of Spring Awakening, which was the first show we did at our home at 401 DeKalb Street. She was a part of The Color Purple, which is still the highest grossing show in Theater Horizon's history. Like Amanda's always helped the company sort of like level up musically in musical theater land. And so anyway, all that to say is that we were like looking for something that we wanted to sort of create. We spent so much time together interpreting other musicals, but we said, wow, do you think we could write one? And funnily enough, the idea for Wishing to Grow Up Brightly didn't start as a musical. She was in tech for K-pop, a show she worked on Broadway. And I was living in upstate New York, and I was doing writing. I was writing some screenplays and like some stuff for stage. I was just being a writer, basically. And she was journaling during K-pop about her life. And she would send me like her stream of consciousness as she was in tech. And I would like turn it into a scene and I would email it back to her. And we were just thinking that it was actually, we were going to write like a movie about her life, funnily enough. And then Nell Bang Jensen, who was the artistic director at Theater Horizon at the time, had approached Amanda about a Pew project, the Pew Center for Arts and Heritage, who is supporting Wishing to Grow Up Brightly. And they spoke about it being a musical. And Amanda came back to me and said, what would you think about turning what we were writing into a musical? And I was like, what? Like that did not cross my mind at all, because it had such a cinematic language at the time when we were writing it. And then I thought about it more, and she was really excited about it. And I was like, yeah, it totally could be a musical. And that was kind of the beginning of it. In a way, it was always going to be sort of her story of her adoption, because at the time she was also sharing with me her adoption papers and documents and photos and just all these things that she was revisiting from that time in her life and discovering. I was so moved to bear witness to that. I mean, she's this dear friend of mine who I've known for a long time, but as she was wanting to take her life and turn it into a story, I think it's so brave, and it's so brave, so vulnerable. I was just very honored to like help take care of that story, and that means so much to her.
Yeah. Um, why do you think at first it was not? Why do you think the initial path was not to musical?
It was just because I was liking, in the time that I was at in my life and what I was writing, I was like exploring how to be a better writer for the screen. And so it was just sort of my impulse was to put some of the stream of consciousness that she was writing into sort of a more cinematic lens. And I think that it wasn't anything to what it became eventually, but at that time it was scenes about her college life, or scenes about growing up in her hometown, which was near Albany, New York. And yeah, it just felt very, very cinematic to me. And that's how I started to interpret it. And funnily enough, that was some of the material that we ended up submitting in the grant to sort of say, like, this could be where we could start from. Those scenes didn't end up in the musical at all. But I think the starting point I think it's just kind of where we both were dreaming about. Like, we're like, wouldn't it be cool if this was a movie? And it very well still could be a movie, even in the musical form. But no, I think that's why it started there. But ultimately, it makes so much sense that it became a musical. I mean, that is the art form that both Amanda and I and Josh Totora, who wrote the score, and Brenson Thomas, who collaborated with us on the book, that's all of our roots in a lot of ways. Like, we have such ties to musical theater. We've done so many musicals. So it's the art form that we probably know the best. So it makes
Yeah.
sense that it eventually landed there.
I think we're all happy it became a musical.
Yeah, I'm really happy it became musical.
Philadelphia is so passionate about musicals. There's so many movements that are steeped in musical theater development. It's just exciting that there's so much here, not just pulling from the canon and putting a great team together locally, but also just devising and bringing something to life that you can say was here in Philly. Philly did that.
I mean, yes, and this is such a Philly piece in a way, because so many Philly artists made it, or folks with Philly as their roots made it. I'm so enamored and so impressed with how Philadelphia has always been this place where people can develop new work, and where so many theaters are so willing to support that development. And we have places like the Pew Center for Arts and Heritage, that will give funding to artists to make new work. It's very rare, I think, in the country that, that there's that many resources and that many people that are really like teed up to do that many theaters that are teed up to do it. We're
Yeah.
really lucky.
Yeah. Uh, take us into the room, not the rehearsal room, but take us into the development room, I guess I would say, where yourself, Amanda, Brenson, and Josh got together to bring this to life. What was it like in there?
It was really a lot of laughter, and uh, a lot of ideas. I'll set the scenes. At the time that we started writing this piece, I was living in Hudson, New York, which is about two hours north of New York City. Bren was in New York City. Amanda and Josh were near almost near Princeton, New York, New Jersey, excuse me. So we all actually met we actually got an Airbnb and we spent a week together in Princeton the first time we all got together. And we took over this house and just like Amanda basically told us her life story in a lot of ways. And anytime something struck us or it became something that we felt like it could be potentially like a dramatic sequence, we would sort of write it down on these cards. So by the end of the week together, the entire like dining room was just covered in index cards and sort of like all of these potential plot threads, and we categorized things. So it was really just like this, like it was incredible because her story is unbelievable. I mean, it's truly so beautiful and so moving. The amount of love that has taken care of her, and the love of her birth parents and the love of her, especially her birth mother, and the love then of her parents, her adopted parents. It's just such a beautiful, it's a beautiful story. And so it just became like the challenge was like, well, what is the story? There was so much to mine from. And I think that after that first week together where we sort of heard everything, the next question was like, well, what are we going to take from this? And what are we going to actually put into this, things emerged. Basically, I think when you think about where we landed, this is a story, yes, about a woman a Korean American woman who wants to find out where she came from and the origins of her life. But it's also about the loss of her father. At the beginning of the story, her father dies has just passed. And so it is also a story about grief and coming home and figuring out what is sort of left behind and how you move through that grief. And so it is also a story about Amanda and her mother coping with that loss. And when someone dies, what that stirs up in those that are left behind and how they compensate from that. So that kind of became in some ways like a North Star for us within the story. It was like, okay, well, we're setting this at her childhood home where she's packing it up with her mother after her father has died. And so how the events roll out from there will reveal how she then has to learn about where she came from and why she wants to learn about it now. So once we kind of found that, we knew what we could sort of take from that week in Princeton with all of the events of all of her life. And not only the events of her life, I think we also just talked about in general, sort of, what was happening in that time with young infants being taken from Korea and brought into America. And luckily for Amanda, she wasn't subjected to a lot of the sort of, for lack of a better word, like baby trade that was happening in that time. That luckily was not Amanda's situation, but we did delve into the history of Korean adoption, but ultimately decided that that wasn't Amanda's story. So we wanted to, so really finding like this aspect that said, like, if we're specific to Amanda's story, we will find the universality in it for us all. I think that really is true. And that's really something we're all very proud of, is that this is the story of one Korean adoptee's journey. But it's also a story about family. It's also a story about loss. It's also a story about wanting to belong and understanding where you came from. And those questions, I think we've learned throughout the run of this, are really hitting folks from all walks of life. And so it's kind of really beautiful to watch Amanda's story impact so many people.
Yeah. Thinking about people, let's talk about the cast and bringing them in, and what were their thoughts at the first table read, and how how have rehearsals been and their progression through that.
The cast is so dreamy. We have been lucky that most of them have been a part of this from the first workshop. So Sammy Ma, who plays Amanda, has been with us since the beginning. And Sammy is someone that Amanda Morton had worked with on another project. And she just She's an incredible actor, an incredible singer, so intuitive, so smart, so nuanced as a performer, but also she just like understands the essence of Amanda. We never had to spend a lot of time like talking about the essence of that. And I can't even imagine like she's like playing a real person who is also the writer, who is also, so well. Like that is a heavy lift. And Sammy has never seemed burdened by that. She's seemed sort of ignited by that. Just knowing that we had that spirit already taken care of and it just became about like making sure the story was clear was such a gift. That's such a testament to Sammy. But Sammy's been with us all along, as well as the two actors that play the parents, Mary Beth Gorman, who plays Amanda's mother, Jean, and then Trey Lyford, who plays her father, Walt. And having that sort of nucleus family with us throughout the development process was extremely beneficial because that in some ways is really a lot of how the story like hinges upon that family dynamic. And when we first worked with the cast, we didn't have an act two. We had an act one only. When you see this play, act one and act two are almost like two entirely different worlds.
Mm.
And so we did a reading of act one with most of the songs at that point. And the cast was just so instrumental in sort of just like asking us questions, which we needed. Like, when you're working on something new, especially a musical, there's so many components that sort of have to sort of congeal, like is the book serving the score? Is the book setting up, enough opportunities for the songs to, pardon me, like pun, but like sing, the book has to provide the right structures for the songs. Are there too many songs? Is there not enough scenes? I mean, all of those questions. Is the plot clear? I mean, like, just, does this line make you wonder about something we're not including later? I mean, they were so wonderful in being sort of dramaturgical detectives with us. And plus, since most of them were with it since that first reading, they knew the characters so well. So by the time we got to rehearsal here in October in preparation for the production, they had lived with them for so long. There's one character in the play who is Amanda's best friend. Her name is Allie Park, and she's played by an incredible actor named Katie Boren. And that character has changed so much sort of throughout the process. And and just having Katie there since the beginning was just so useful to us because she helped us figure out what we needed to do with that character, how that character had to function, the way that she provided sort of a balance and a different perspective to what Amanda was going through in the play was so useful. I mean, they're just amazing. They're amazing. Bren is in it. So Bren was one of our writers and he's also in the show. There's this subplot, or I guess the main plot actually, in the play where there's this tech company called reMemorex, which is sort of a pun on Memorex tapes, if you remember those, everybody from the 80s. But so they're this tech company that works with people and helps them with their death care experience, is what they say. They're a company that they pack up all your things at home. They help you with grief counseling, but they also provide this experience where they have sort of become like a virtual reality archive of memories of the deceased. And you can actually enter those memories and you can experience those memories with the deceased. And in the beginning of the play, Amanda and her mother, Jean, find out that Walt, their father, had done this experience. And so they actually have access to his memories. And so the play is in a lot of ways about memories. And Bren plays one of those agents. So just having him as a writer and also on the inside as an actor provided us like incredible access to how things feel, for him. And so he was able to sort of help us shape that company and understand how that company really needed to show up in a human way in the piece. I could talk to them about them forever. They've just been so wonderful and we've been so lucky to have them because, they've just been this constant presence that has really, I think you see it in the play. You feel like these people have known each other for a long time because they've been working on this for a long time.
Yeah. You're also speaking to the value of support, the Pew Center for Arts and Culture, Culture and Heritage, sorry. Their support allowed you to keep working with the same people on this development, and sometimes like I'm part of a development group and we don't always have access to everybody at the same time. And then sometimes you get a new actor and it changes their whole perspective on everything. But like, if you can work with the same team who's been carrying the history with them, like you said, dramaturgical detectives, it's that's so valuable having that history and how it was being processed in their bodies and presenting it to you because you don't have that on paper.
That is exactly right. You don't. I mean, use resources to not only to Theater Horizon and every theater and artist they support enable us to be able to yes secure those folks and keep them on the project. But I also have to say that this cast is primarily AAPI actors, and so folks that have worked with Amanda or that Amanda has admired and been in orbit with. And so I think it's also a testament to Amanda as a person, but also Amanda's story that these folks said, no, I'm going to do this. I mean, it's not very often that, a Korean adoptee story is being told on stage. I think this is the only time it's ever been musicalized. So the fact that these actors also said, this is well, also why I love them. They said, I want to be a part of this. Like, I want to prioritize this. I want to help tell this story. And it's very moving when you have artists that believe in what you're doing and want to be a part of it. It's a vote of confidence, yes, but it also, as you're saying, it's special, but also like it just that is the reason that this play is ultimately successful. It's because these artists have dedicated their time and said, I will be there, I will show up, and I will make this with you. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. So you're at final preview, opening is the next day. How are you feeling?
I was very excited at final preview. I was really excited. I think, it's always, no matter how much time you have, the race to the finish line always feels like a race, and it feels like you need like a million more hours. But ultimately, like the time you have is the time that you have, and somehow you figure it out and you make it all work. And we have a crackerjack design team on this piece. Shin Chen did the set, Tom Weaver did the lights, assisted by Manny Garcia. We have Damian Figueres on sound. We have Jill Keys on costumes. We have such an incredible team, and we have Alec Farrell as our stage manager. So there's just like everybody was just ready to make the play great every night. We have Brigitte Rotman, who is our music director and leading this beautiful band, Nikki Kuzino as our choreographer. So everybody was just sort of like, we were just like honing. We were just, like carving it out, like figuring it out. And so there was like just movement towards making the piece better. And, I don't know, like whatever, this is going to sound so cheesy or maybe like diluted, but sometimes as a director, like you're watching stuff and you don't let go, like you're like, I wish I could fix that. I wish I could fix that. Like, I wish I
Yeah.
could look at this more. I kind of was giving myself pep talks. I was like, just be in the room, just like experience it and see what it feels like, see how it's reverberating through the audience, like see if you can feel the emotional current, because I think that this piece has a deep emotional current to it. It's carrying a lot of humor at the forefront. It has a lot of humor, but it's also carrying this sort of grief space of this family that has lost their father and their husband, but it's also carrying this sort of quest that emerges in self-discovery um and self-exploration. And ultimately, I think we talked about how the story is about how Amanda grows up. By the end, she sort of figures out, I've got to take ownership of my life and my choices. And so it does need to pitch it correctly so that all of those sort of things could exist at the same time. So I wanted, as a watcher, because I think the director is the first watcher in a lot of ways, right? I wanted to make sure that I was sort of available to that current, if that makes sense, so that I could feel that. By the last preview, this is a long answer to your question, but by the last preview, I was feeling it, and so that was exciting because I think the audience is feeling it too. It's very moving in a lot of ways, and it was just wonderful to feel that the audience was picking up on that.
Yeah. And it's also quite justified to feel that way. It's a world premiere.
Yeah, right.
This is the first full audience and full run that the piece is going to have. And so you're like, is everything perfect? It's kind of like walking out of your house going, did I leave the stove on? And like, who still
Yes.
says that? But it's just the things like, because you know that you had a wealth of information that you could have told this story with. There were so many pieces of Amanda's life that you could have added or that you left out, you know? And so it does make sense to be sitting there going like, I wonder if that is, could we have put, what
Mm-hmm.
if we did, and no one knows what to expect. They're ultimately there for the ride. It's this start to finish, and they won't really have an opinion until the end to
That's
see
right.
what story you told. And by the end, they're going, I get this. I've been moved. This is wonderful. But in our minds, we are all the same.
And
I
you're
don't
just saying,
know.
like, is this working? I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, it's you're right. It's such a gamble. It is. It's really you're just hoping that you land the plane and that it arrives as something that feels
Yeah.
ultimately fulfilling. And you're so right. You're so right in thinking about that's a great way to think about it. What the audience is coming in and they have no idea what to
Hmm.
expect. And that is very rare as a director. It's rare to direct something new. You know, you're directing this thing that has been done so many times before. So people come in thinking, is
Yeah.
yours going to be good? Like, am I going to
Hmm.
like yours? Or like,
Yeah.
what did you do with it that's different? And that's a whole other different type of pressure. But
Yeah.
with this, it really was just like, are you seeing what we're trying to do? Are you picking up on that? And yeah, and by the last preview, I think I felt like, okay, all right, there's really something here that people are connecting to. I
So,
hope.
yeah. So now it's open. And you had opening night. What were some of the audience responses?
Well, I mean, I think in general, folks seem to be really taken with it. And it's been extraordinary to witness the adoptee community come out from all over to see this performance. And, so I've been lucky to capture glimpses of that community connecting with one another and connecting with Amanda, and being appreciative of the work in that way. I mean, I've known Amanda for a long time, and so I've been privy to her story. But it's been pretty extraordinary for me to be speaking about this play to folks in my life or folks connected to me in various ways, and hearing adoptees say, "I'm adopted." Folks that have never really spoken about it with me before, or I may have just met and said, "No, I'm adopted." I was in the gym the other day, and I was talking to somebody about it, and they were like, "No, I'm adopted." And my friend over here, he's from Korea. He's from South Korea. So we're gonna
Wow.
come. So it's that community wanting to show up for this story and coming and being affected by it and moved by it has been really beautiful to witness. And that is also a testament to Amanda, who has said, like, I want to create a story about this. I want a story about adoption to be in the musical theater canon, and I want that to exist. And I'm instantly seeing the fruits of that in our performances. It's great.
Yeah. And it's all those unique parts of ourselves that if you express them in your art, you're going to find people who see themselves in it as well. And it's, people are waiting for stories that they can relate to. And it's not that our canon doesn't have anything, you know, to call on, but when it's new, your ears are sort of pricked up and you're like, "What? Yeah, okay, I resonate with that. I'm going to go see what this is about."
Yeah,
And
it's extraordinary. It really is.
yeah,
It's really extraordinary.
because there's so many ways that people enter into the space, and it's good to know that the breakdown of the story is pulling in this community who's may not even be theater people, but
Hmm.
there's a story here that relates to them, and now they will become theater people.
That's right. I need more of us. We need more theater people, Darnell.
Absolutely. Have you all talked about like what's next for this piece? Not trying to rush it off Horizon stage.
I mean, yes, we've certainly talked about another life could be for it. I mean, I think we all hope it has more life.
Hmm.
What is so beautiful and special about a first production is that it's just a time of discovery, and it's a time of just sort of throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks, and then you edit it down. And so the benefit of a second production is that you know really what works and what could be leaned into and what could be done more effectively a second time around. So I think we would all love another production of this. anywhere, just to sort of give us a chance to dig back in with the perspective of a run and of a tech process and of a preview process, and then say, okay, well, how do we make this scene better? How do we lean into this song more? What will we do here? How do we make things tighter? So yes, I mean, that's what we all want, and I'm sure what we all will be pursuing when this closes. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So what do you hope an audience takes away from this experience?
Hmm, it's a great question. I mean, I hope that they can see that love comes in many forms and that love is sometimes painful, and hard to experience, but it ultimately is there to hopefully help us grow and thrive as people. I think that loss also teaches us a lot about love, and it teaches us a lot about how the loss of a person, obviously they're not with us anymore, but they live with us forever, and that it's also something that we continue to sort of grow and learn from. I lost my father, as I said, before this process started in a lot of ways, or during this process. And so I think that there is a kind of grief space that this play holds. And I think that loss is inevitable for all of us. We can't escape it. And I'm really happy that we've put into the world a play that examines that on a pretty deep level and that gives people space to process that. So I hope that's what people take away from it, that it is a story that is ultimately hopeful about how we can continue on despite the loss in our lives that we all inevitably will face.
Absolutely. And that's a good place to leave it. Once again, everyone, it's the world premiere musical Wishing to Grow Up Brightly, a search for connection in the fragments left behind. It's on stage at Theater Horizon right now. So if you're listening to this, go get tickets. It's on through November 23rd. You can go to theaterhorizon.org for more information to learn about the team who put this all together. But yes, get out here and support Theater Horizon and support new musical development and come see this show. Matt Decker, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. It was truly a pleasure.
Thank you, Darnell, for having me. As always, it's so lovely to talk to you.